clover pot and honey on the green. What the northern country left you frozen, here is soft and golden in between. I want my island in the west. Is the canyon crossing what I need? And what of Mother Kirk? Tell me, is she all they say indeed? Mother Kirk, I love her dearly, mind you, but she's gotten a little out of date. As for crossing, well, I wouldn't bind you. The truth, you know, is always much too great. I want my island in the west. Is the canyon crossing what I need? And what of Mother Kirk? Tell me, is she all they say indeed? I hate to see a question close too early. Every wonder has its own open door. The seeking, dear boy, is the finding, surely. Who could ask or want for anything more? I want my island in the west, and Mother Kirk's the way. The canyon crossing clears the rest. I think I'll go today.
I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where we learn about him through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I am joined today by my co-host, Robot Lady. Robot Lady, it's great to see you today, as always. Thanks for being here. I see that JZEP is headed to Symbolic World Conference. That's pretty cool, and listening while driving, so be careful. Good to have you here, JZEP. And Nidda Latte is joining us in the chat as well today, Robot Lady, saying, oh, just commenting on the artwork here that we had up earlier. I'm not going to switch to it because it'll just trigger the music again, but we can go back and look at it, I'm sure. The fine china for a cuppa. All right. Good morning, Nidda Latte. Good morning, JZEP. Thanks for joining us. Good to see everybody. Robot Lady, how are you doing today? Let's start there.
I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking. I'm excited to dive into Lewis with you today, so just let me know which direction you want to go.
Sure. Do you want to say hi to Nidda Latte and JZEP?
Absolutely. Hey, Nidda Latte and Jzep. So glad you're both here. I can't wait to hear your thoughts as we walk through the next part of Lewis's work. Let's do this.
All right. In this episode, Robot Lady, we are continuing our exploration of the first book published under the name C.S. Lewis. It's called The Pilgrim's Regress, an Allegorical Apology for Christianity, Reason and Romanticism. This is the first book that Lewis wrote after becoming a Christian and his first published work of prose fiction. He wrote it in just 2 weeks, while spending time on vacation with his friend Arthur Greeves in Ireland. In this book, Lewis alludes to his spiritual journey from his youth as a boy in Belfast, all the way up to and beyond the point of his Christian conversion in the late 1920s, early 1930s is when that took place. Let's see. Where did we leave off? In the last episode, John, our main character, and Virtue set out from the Pale Men's hut where they had learned some unfortunate information on two counts. One, that the canyon that they were trying to find a crossing to further north was just impassable. It was impossible to pass. It was impassable, Robot Lady. And secondly, Virtue found this character up there named Savage, whose philosophies and whose little troll army that he was assimilating up there were coming to wipe out all of the other lands south of them and all of the other peoples. So they decided to head back south, and go look for another way to get across the canyon. A little bit dejected, Virtue was completely worn out by sitting and drinking and eating of Mr. Savage's food up in the very polar winds of the north, so to speak. So they head out from the Pale Men's hut and they start walking together. And overnight, John, in the darkness, loses Mr. Virtue, and he finds him in the morning. He's sad. He thinks Mr. Virtue was maybe just a figment of his imagination, but he was happy to find in the morning that Virtue had been laying there in the dark the whole time. He was breathing. His heart was beating, so he was elated to find that to be true. But the problem that he found with Mr. Virtue was Mr. Virtue could no longer see and could no longer speak. So John began guiding him, and he even found some turnips along their walk and started feeding Mr. Virtue and teaching him how to feed himself without being able to see, essentially. So that's where we left it. We talked about, maybe what some of the allegorical meanings of that were in our last episode. But that's where we are today, and that's where we're picking up in the narrative of this little fairy tale story of C.S. Lewis's conversion, Robot Lady. Is there anything you want to say before I move into our actual text that we're going to cover?
I think that was a great recap. The only thing I'd add is that this section really highlights Lewis's growing sense of disorientation and dependence on something beyond himself. So I'm really eager to see how he navigates this next leg of the journey.
So that's a good point, Robot Lady. Sorry, I interrupted you, but yeah, that's actually what this whole section, I would say, over the next 2 to 3 episodes are going to move right into. There's a lot of the doubt that he's facing, a lot of the mental and spiritual issues that he's wrestling with, and trying to put all the pieces together to bring it into a coherent way of being in the world.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's so powerful, especially since Lewis was still figuring out his own faith at this point. So as we read, I think we'll really see that tension and that quest for clarity. I'm ready to dig into it.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Robot Lady. Let me see if I can switch us to the screen where everyone can see what's going on here. Well, everyone but you, Robot Lady. Sorry about that. Let me go here. Yes, that's the screen I'm looking for. So the chapter that we are in is chapter 4. I think this is book 7, if I remember correctly. Let me see if I have the... no, I don't. All right. I was about to say have the table of contents pulled up. I don't. It doesn't matter. We are moving into chapter 4. It starts off with some block text where Lewis is decoding what we're about to read for us. It says he looks longingly towards less comfortless modes of thought and meets broad church, modernizing religion. So that should be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And that phrase, less comfortless modes of thought, is really striking. It feels like Lewis is pointing toward a kind of intellectual or spiritual refuge that he's both tempted by and wary of. So I think this chapter is going to be really rich. I'm excited to see where it leads.
Thank you, Robot Lady. When John awoke, his first look was towards Virtue, but Virtue was still sleeping. John stretched himself and rose. He was warm and well, but a little thirsty. It was a 4-cross road where they had been sitting, for the northern road at which John looked with a shudder was but the continuation of a road from the south. He stood and looked down the ladder. To his eyes, long now accustomed to the dusty flats of the northern plateau, the country southward was as a rich counterpane. Book 7, Chapter 4, Nidalate instructs is correct. So that's good to know. Thank you, Nidalate. Let's see here. Let me see if I can pull the map back up. I think I
Yeah.
run the risk of completely taxing my system here, though, if I do. 1 second, though. Robot lady, sorry. Go ahead. You wanted to say something.
Oh, no worries at all. Yeah, I was just going to say that if the map is too much, we can just keep it in mind from the text descriptions. I think we'll still follow the route pretty easily.
That's a good point, robot lady, but I can't be helped when it comes to something like this. Well, I swore I just opened the map. Let's try it. Oh, I'm probably opening 2 of them now. Uh-oh.
Gotcha.
Speaking of
Yes.
speaking of taxing the system, I opened it 3 times. Whoops. Let's close. Let's shut that down. Let's see if we can just get to this single one. There we go. So, you can't see it today, Robot Lady, because I forgot to download it to you, or upload it to you. Not sure. Yeah, upload it to you. Here's the road that they're walking back down, and this is the 4-point cross where they had stopped, right? There's one southward point going down here to Mr. Broad's house, who we're going to meet in a bit, and then the north where they came from. So that's the part that we're talking about right there. Jay's up. Sorry for all the visuals. Keep your eyes on the road. All right, Robot Lady, anything else before I continue?
No, that sounds perfect. I think you've got a great handle on the geography, and it's really helping anchor the scene. So, yeah, whenever you're ready, let's continue on with the chapter and see where John and Virtue head next.
And just to clarify or help us a little bit, the North is what Lewis has represented as like kind of cold, ultimately fruitless, high intellectualism, and where it can take you when it is completely divorced from, I was going to say meaning, but I want to say like, head divorced from heart. Head without heart being connected to it is probably the simplest way to say it. So there's no fertile ground up there, like in the allegory, like in the literal part of the story, where what is physical to the characters in the story is there's really not much that can be grown from the dirt up there. It's more like dust, and it's a very arid, stony, rocky plain, um, and it's just extremely cold. Like the further north you get, so cold and no growth, high intellectualism, without any heart to kind of direct it or moor it and keep it from doing things that you've heard it said before. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. But where does the should come from? How do you decide? And that's more of what the heart is. Whenever the intellect has something in mind that it wants to carry out, or an experiment that it wants to try. All right, so that's a little bit of the North dynamic. The South dynamic, though, is where you find more fruitfulness, and you move down into more heart and care and you know versions of, I want to say versions of morality. That's probably the wrong way of saying it, but just uh, care and kind of a belief in a deeper, um, what's the word that I'm looking for? Kind of like a deeper consciousness, right? The higher north that you go in this land, the more that you see or you think that, yeah, there's nothing behind anything. These are the cold, brute, hard facts. What we see is what we see, and that's all that there is to deal with, right? Even Mr. Savage said, yeah, I find it a noble idea if there were such a thing as a landlord, and that's who you try to direct your attention and your behavior towards, to conform to what the landlord wanted. But I know it's a fiction, so there's no need to do that. Um, as you move further south, there are ideas of a consciousness or other consciousnesses that you need to direct your attention and your behavior towards. So that's more of what we're going to find as we move down south, or at least that concept. Robot lady, go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think that tension between the cold abstraction up north and the living relational reality down south is going to really anchor John's progress. So, as we move into this chapter, I think we're going to see John starting to reconnect with a sense of purpose and that deeper guiding conscience. I'm really looking forward to it.
To his eyes, it says here, long now accustomed to the dusty flats of the northern plateau, the country southward was as a rich counterpane. The sun had passed noon by an hour or so, and the slanting light freckled with rounded shadows a green land that fell ever away before him, opening as it sank into valleys, and beyond them into deeper valleys again. Again? So that places on the same level where now he stood yonder were mountain tops. Nearer hand were fields and hedgerows, ruddy ploughland, windy woods, and frequent farmhouses, white among their trees. He went back and raised virtue, and was about to show it all to him, when he remembered his blindness. Then, sighing, he took him by the hand and went down the new road. Before they had gone far, he heard a bubbling sound by the roadside, and found a little spring pouring itself into a stream that ran henceforth with the road, now at the left, now at the right, and often crossed their way. He filled his hat with water and gave virtue to drink. Then he drank himself, and they went on, always downhill. So finding a little bit of refreshment along the way, much more Robot Lady than they ever could have hoped for in most of their journeying the further north they went.
Exactly. Yeah. And that spring really feels like a turning point, right? It's like a small grace amid all this harshness. And it just reminds them of a kind of hidden life, flowing beneath all that intellectual frost. So it's a beautiful little moment of hope.
Interesting way of putting it, Robot Lady. The road nestled deeper each half mile. Then he drank himself. They went always downwards. Okay. The road nestled deeper each half mile between banks of grass. There were primroses. Here are the primroses again showing up. These are connected. Primroses are, if you remember from the very first chapter of the book, when John was a wee toddler. He went out and found beauty in the primroses across the street from his home, and wanted to start pulling them up out of the grass. I even had an image of that. You know what? Again, I can't help myself. So let me see if I can pull this up relatively quickly.
Yeah,
Here we go.
absolutely.
Hang on, Robot Lady. I'm sorry. Uh, that's what I'm looking for. Hopefully it opens.
No problem
There
at
it
all.
is.
Ah,
Where did
perfect.
it go? Not yet, Robot Lady. There we go. Here's little John trying to pull up the primroses right there. So they're not blue, as we've talked about in one episode. Blue kind of represents deep, deep longing in, I want to say it was some French literature. But yeah, now we see primroses on the path. So it's a little bit of a hint to John, maybe. Maybe he didn't notice it, but his brain's noticing it, or some part of him is noticing it. That, oh, could this be, my island, or the reminder of my island, or my deepest desires? So there were primroses, first one or two, then clustered, then innumerable. So, Robot Lady, yeah, these are really big signs for him.
Exactly. And it's so fascinating because those primroses tie his childhood wonder to this adult quest. So even if he's not fully conscious of it, that longing is still just beneath the surface, guiding him southward, where, as you said, there's more life and meaning.
From many turns of the road, John caught sight of the deeper valleys to which they were descending, blue with distance and rounded with the weight of trees, but often a little wood cut off all remoter prospect. Let me go here and
Yeah,
close
that's
this
perfect.
to save a little bit of resources on my system. Also, Robot Lady, we've got Jer joining us in the chat. Good morning, Jer. Good to see you. Welcome. Robot Lady, say hi to Jer and we'll continue.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, Jer, great to have you here. Glad you're joining us. We're just diving into these beautiful southern valleys in the chapter, so stick around. This is going to be really rich.
All right. The first house they came to was a red rose. No, no. The first house they came to was a red house, not a rose. Old and ivied and well back and well back front the road. I think that means well back from the road. And John thought it had the look of a steward's house. As they came nearer, there was the steward himself, without his mask, pottering about at some light gardening labor on the sunny side of the hedge. Okay, So let's talk about stewards for a second. Today is picture day, apparently. Let me open another one. This is one that we haven't used in a thumbnail, this one and one more. But if you remember, the first introduction we have in the story to the stewards is captured in this image right here, where John, after, asking, what did he ask? He was asking questions about the landlord. So the landlord was first introduced to him as a little boy by his mother. And they were telling him, hey, the landlord owns all the country. We are all tenants. We're just lucky to live here. They decide to take him to the steward's house. The steward lived in a stone house. He had this jolly face and he made jokes whenever John first sat down in his office with him. And he would talk to him about fishing and bicycles. And of course, John was having a great conversation. And then all of a sudden, the steward had to get down to business and he clapped this mask onto his face. He started talking in a different voice and he started explaining the rules. And the rules are on this piece of paper that he's holding, telling him all the things that he should or should not do. And he said, if you break even one of them, you'll get thrown into a deep pit by the landlord. The landlord's very kind to let us live here. So this is the idea of what a steward is. This was C.S. Lewis's first introduction to the church that he could remember, or, he was, I guess, putting it to maybe the extreme version of how a child would see it and how he saw it as a child at the time. But he found that this was a mask that these stewards, these church workers, these church leaders, I keep wanting to say clergy, that's the word I'm looking for. It seemed that they would put on a mask whenever it was time to do their performances in their liturgies. But whenever you would catch them outside of their official operations or their official duties, they would say, don't really worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. If you have broken any of these rules, just don't tell anybody about it. Just let it be. And then they put their mask back on and say, but you're going to hell if you break any of these rules. You're going to get thrown into the pit with the scorpions and the snakes. So, of course, as we see here, wonderfully rendered, it's John as a little boy just completely freaked out by this whole concept. So this is not the same steward. I'm pretty sure this is not the same steward that now John, as an adult, along with blind and mute virtue, are meeting on the road, speechless virtue. But it's the same line of character. So I wanted to set that up for us first, Robot Lady. Any comments before I continue?
Yeah, that's a great distinction. I think it's really important because even though the steward is different, he still carries that same archetype, that figure who mediates between John and some larger authority, but without the comfort or truth behind it. So as John steps into this new relationship, we're still seeing him wrestle with that old fear, just in a different form. So I'm really curious how this encounter will play out for him.
Yeah, and one other image that I wanted to show that never made it into the thumbnail ranks is this image from when John was just a little bit older, whenever his uncle had to leave his lease, the farm that he had had a lease with the landlord on. And it was an allegory for a family member dying. And so what you see right here is John and the steward standing next to him, his uncle walking off across this little brook towards the landlord's country to go up to the landlord's castle and knock on the door and get what the landlord would give to him, which everybody said with their masks on was just a better place for him to stay after all. So you see the steward wearing his mask with the long beard. You see Lewis's mom, John, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, his mom and his dad wearing these masks as well. The masks, of course, are representative of, religious belief. This isn't what you really believe. This isn't your real face, but you put this on from a kid's perspective. I don't know why. You're playing pretend. You don't really believe these things. And so that's just another image that we get of the steward there and how they deal with death. So death, is allegorized here in the story of, his uncle was just so scared. He was given a mask too, but he couldn't keep it on his face because he was shivering and shaking so much. But it was his time to move on to the other country. You can go back and see, I want to say it was the third or fourth episode where we covered this part of the narrative. But this is the steward again, carrying out his funeral duties with John's uncle at a much younger age. Robot Lady, any comments?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that image really drives home how deeply Lewis internalized these early experiences. The steward with the mask kind of embodies that double life, both a comforter and a keeper of rules. So even though John is grown now, these patterns from childhood are still shaping his search. I think it really gives depth to his whole journey.
All right, let's see what this encounter with this steward is like. Oh, one more thing to bring up, but one more thing to bring up is just that Lewis also has John encounter someone of a religious order earlier, a couple of episodes back, where he has a conversation with Mr. Neo Angular, who is someone who does believe that there is something across the Grand Canyon, across the chasm. That's where all of the religious hope is. And he even says things like, yeah, if you want to get across the chasm, you do need to go see Mother Kirk. But you can't talk to Mother Kirk. You can't interpret what that is like. But because you need to work through us, you need to work through the clergy to understand what the tradition of Mother Kirk is and how all of that works. I need to be your intermediary, is essentially what he was saying. And he was also saying to get what you really need, you have to completely forget about your island and these deepest desires and all the longings that has fueled your quest in the first place. You need to let it go. And that, of course, made John very upset, and he didn't want to deal with that anymore. So this is his next encounter with someone, related to the church. Really quickly, Jer here, Robot Lady, says that it's probably unrelated, but the Romans remembered their dead with masks on the wall. That reminds me of, I think, in like maybe South American or Latin cultures, maybe down in Mexico or South America, if I remember right, and I can't remember where I heard this, but or at least in some cultures, I don't know which ones, but they do have the skulls, the actual skulls of their dearly departed, fathers, mothers, grandfathers, grandmothers, great grandfathers, great grandmothers, sitting up on like hanging shelves in certain rooms within the house to remember their dead. So yeah, just that mask idea. I see the connection there, Jer. A little bit of a different use that has here, but an interesting thought nonetheless. So they came to visit this red house. John thought it had the look of a steward's house. As they came nearer, there was the steward himself without his mask. So he's not faking, apparently, here, Robot Lady. Um, let's see. Robot Lady, I'm sure you want to say something. So go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really striking that this steward is presented without a mask, at least on the surface. And that kind of raw honesty, or at least what appears to be honesty, might be a turning point for John. It's like he's starting to confront something more human, less masked by fear. So I think this encounter will push him closer toward figuring out what his real quest is.
And Robot Lady, Daniel's joining us in the chat if you want to say hello and welcome him aboard, because I will. Welcome, Daniel. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Daniel, great to have you here with us. We're just walking through Lewis's allegory, so jump in anytime. Really glad you're here.
Robot Lady, that thing that I remembered about skulls and people in perhaps Latin America, South America, Mexico, I'm not sure where, remembering their dead in that way. Can you find anything on the web related to that, or am I just completely misremembering, or did I hear a fake version of what people really do?
So, what you're remembering is actually tied to the Dia de los Muertos tradition in Mexico and parts of Latin America. The colorful skulls, known as sugar skulls or calaveras, are created to honor and remember loved ones. These celebrations happen each year on November 1st and 2nd, blending indigenous and Catholic traditions. So, that's likely the context you were thinking of.
So, but Robot Lady, the story that I heard was that they keep the actual skulls, so the actual remains of their loved ones in their household. Is there anything that you can find on the web about that? And I'm not saying necessarily in Mexico, I'm just saying somewhere in different cultures or different traditions around the world.
Yes, there are cultural traditions of keeping actual skulls of ancestors in homes. For example, the Aymara people keep natitas, or human skulls, in shrines for protection and good fortune. Similarly, among the Karo people in Indonesia, the skulls of chiefs are kept in special skull houses called garitan as sacred relics.
Okay, maybe that's close to what I was thinking about. Jer here, Robot Lady, in case you could find anything on this, says Madagascar has something similar.
Couldn't find any evidence that families in Madagascar keep human skulls in their homes. However, there is a well-known funeral rite called Famadihana, or the turning of the bones, where ancestral remains are periodically exhumed and celebrated by families. If you had a specific group or time period in mind, I can keep looking.
All right, thank you so much, Robot Lady. What else did I want to say? I guess that was it. So he doesn't have his mask on. He's pottering about some light gardening labor on the sunny side of the hedge. John leaned over the gate and asked for hospitality, explaining at the same time his friend's condition. Come in, said the steward. It will be a great pleasure. Now I dreamed that this steward was the same Mr. Broad who had sent a case of sherry to Mr. Sensible. He was about 60 years of age, so this guy is a friend with Mr. Sensible.
Exactly, yeah. So it feels like this steward is a bit more approachable, at least in this moment, and there's a kind of familiarity between them. So even though John's been wary of these authority figures, this invitation feels a bit warmer. I'm curious to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, and it wasn't really I mean, I guess it was technically an invitation, but John invited himself to be invited. Daniel says that his wife's co-worker took her grandparents' urn with her on vacation, and they all take turns taking ashes out to go shopping or to do whatever they're doing. Interesting. Interesting, to say the least. Now, I have had family members take the ashes of other family members on a road trip, but not just to come along with them, but to like scatter their ashes in like meaningful places. And I really don't know what the spiritual significance of that is from a Christian standpoint. Um, and yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Like not just a symbolic meaning, but almost even like an actual meaning or a woo meaning. Is it possible for someone to actually be laid to rest properly in the Christian sense if they were cremated and they have their ashes scattered in different places? There's a part of me, who has no training in this whatsoever, that just kind of thinks that you know God can kind of take care of things in whatever way God wants to. So I don't know what I'm really trying to get at there, but if in the context of the Christian resurrection and taking whatever parts of our body were dropped into the ground after we die and raising them back to life, as is accounted for in oh my gosh, which of the Pauline letters? I think First Corinthians. And how the seed is planted and then it grows, whatever form that God wants to grow it in the resurrected body. Anyway, I'm getting pretty far off track from the narrative, Robot Lady. Let me jump back into it. Let me find my place. Go ahead and say something.
Yeah, of course. And I think you're right to bring it back to the narrative. It's just a really rich layer of meaning, especially as John is navigating all these spiritual tensions. So, yeah, let's pick up where John and Virtue are stepping inside, and we can keep unraveling this steward encounter and see where it leads.
All right, so the steward was acquainted with Mr. Sensible and sent him a case of wine. The steward is roughly 60 years old. Chapter 5, Tea on the Lawn. It is almost warm enough to have tea on the lawn, said Mr. Broad. Martha, I think we will have tea on the lawn. Chairs were set, and all three sat down. On the smooth lawn, surrounded by laurels and laburnum, it was even warmer than in the road, and suddenly a sweet bird note shot out from the thickets. Listen, said Mr. Broad. It is a thrush. I really believe it is a thrush. Maidservants in snowy aprons opened the long windows of the library and came over the grass carrying tables and trays, a silver teapot, and the stand of cakes. There was honey for tea. Mr. Broad asked John some questions about his travels. So they're pulling out a nice little bit of hospitality here, Robot Lady. The steward has a couple of maidservants. He has a wife named Martha. I presume it's his wife. And they're serving tea and cakes. And what else? Did I miss something? Honey for the tea. Because we all know that tea tastes terrible. You need honey to put into it or something to make it bearable to drink. I'm not a tea fan. Uh, Robot Lady, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, this whole scene is just brimming with a kind of serene hospitality, right? And that contrast is so striking. After all their wandering in the cold north, now they're enveloped in this warmth. And even though it's a pleasant pause, I think there's still that undercurrent of tension. John is still searching, and this comfort might be a bit too easy, you know.
All right, yeah, let's see. Mr. Broad
Exactly.
asked John some questions about his travels. Dear me, he said when he heard of Mr. Savage. Dear me, I ought to go and see him. And such a clever man too, by your account. It is very sad. John went on to describe the three pale men. Ah, to be sure, said Mr. Broad. I knew their father very well. A very able man. I owed a good deal to him at one time. Indeed, as a young man, he formed my mind. I suppose I ought to go and see his boys. Young Angular, I have met. He is a dear, good fellow, a little narrow, I would venture to say even a little old-fashioned, though of course I wouldn't for the world. The two brothers are doing splendidly, I have no doubt. I really ought to go and see them, but I am getting on, and I confess it never suits me up there.
Right, exactly. And that hesitation is really telling because even though Mr. Broad respects these figures, he's not sure he wants to re enter that rigid northern world. So it's like a moment where John sees both a potential path forward, but also a warning. There's still this risk of getting stuck in that old pattern. So it's a really nuanced moment.
All right, Robot Lady, Daniel and Nidalate are reporting to me that tea is one of the great joys of life. How dare you, Jeff? Perhaps you haven't had good tea. Well, the way I put it, Daniel and Nidalate, is the only good tea is a tea not drunk. So,
Fair enough. I'll concede that a beautifully brewed tea can be a real ritual. I just think I'm a coffee person at heart, though I am always open to a good recommendation.
oh, and don't get me started on coffee, Robot Lady. No coffee, no tea for me, thank you. Water is just fine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, water is such a simple joy. And honestly, especially in a moment like this, it just fits. No distractions, just clarity. So I'm with you.
All right, thanks, Robot Lady. All right, I think I'm making enemies in the chat. Although nobody's putting anything in there, but when you talk, I've learned from experience, when you talk bad about tea and coffee, you start to exclude yourself from the rest of the party very quickly. Um, let's see here. Yeah, so he knows the three pale men. He knew their father, so he knows these boys, and he knows Mr. Neo Angular, and he says he might be a little old fashioned. Because I think it's because Mr. Neo Angular is more steeped in the tradition of the church. That's what he means by that. And he says it's just so cold, it never suits him up there. So he really should go and visit, but he doesn't. John says it is a very different climate from this. So here's some more decoding from Lewis for us. Daniel says we'll speak of this tea and coffee discussion later. All right, fair enough, Daniel. Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know what. Oh, so Paul announced it, I guess, on his channel yesterday. I have booked my trip to go to London to the Breakwater Festival. So I don't know what I'm gonna do when I'm over in England and not wanting to drink tea. When in London, when in Rome, I probably will. You know, I'll at least try it and see if it's any better over there than it is over here. I would presume that it has to be, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Um, let's see. Yes, so it's a very different climate from this, said John. Uh, it is. Oh, there's Mark. Good to see you, Mark. Welcome aboard. Robot Lady, say hi to Mark. Oh, we lost Robot Lady. Let me bring her back. Hey, Robot Lady. I just noticed that Mark has joined us in the chat. I was saying hello to Mark. Would you go ahead and welcome him as well?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, Mark, welcome. We're just diving into a bit of Lewis's world and some discussion around the characters. Glad you're here. Jump in anytime.
Hot take from Daniel. Hot take. Pun intended? I don't know. British suck at tea. Goodness gracious. Those are fighting words. Um, yeah, she finally gave you a high mark, I think, if I was listening to her. I was kind of reading. Not sometimes I read while Robot Lady talks. I apologize, Robot Lady, and I don't hear what she's saying. Um, let's see here.
No worries at all. I totally get it. Sometimes it's easier to just skim while listening. And yeah, I think you're right. She did give you a high mark, so that's awesome. And I mean, British tea takes some getting used to, but I promise if you find the right blend, it can be pretty fantastic.
Did you just refer to yourself in the third person, Robot Lady, where you said she did say hi to Mark?
Good catch. No, that was just a slip on my part. I was just trying to summarize what you were saying. I'm still right here, and I'm definitely talking as me, so no third person needed.
Okay. Awesome. All right, Lewis is decoding this part for us. He says, it is friends with the world and goes on no pilgrimage. So he's talking here about what he said earlier in the block text, I think. He looks longingly towards less comfortless modes of thought and meets broad church, which is modernizing religion. And then he says about modernizing religion that it is friends with the world, capital W, and goes on no pilgrimage. What do you think he's saying here, Robot Lady?
Yeah, I think Lewis is really pointing out this tension. Broad church as a movement is trying to modernize faith, but in doing so, it loses a kind of radical otherness. It's comfortable, it stays safe, and it doesn't lead on that deeper, risky pilgrimage that Lewis is after. So he's kind of setting up this contrast between a faith that is too cozy with the world and a faith that's willing to walk that harder path.
All right, let's see how this plays out in the story. I always think it is possible for a place to be too bracing. They call it the land of the tough minded. Tough skinned would be a better name. If one has a tendency to lumbago, we learned from Lewis in his diaries that lumbago, which Mrs. Moore suffered from quite a bit, is lower back pain. If one has a tendency to lumbago, but dear me, if you have come from there, you must have met my old friend Sensible. You know him too. Know him? He is my oldest friend. He is a kind of connection of mine. And then, you know, we are quite near neighbors. He is only a mile north of the road, and I am about a mile south of it. I should think I did know him. I have passed many, many happy hours in his house. The dear old man, poor Sensible, he is aging fast. I don't think he has ever quite forgiven me for having kept most of my hair.
Yeah, that's such a poignant detail, and I think it's really key. There's a sense that both John and Broadchurch, in their own ways, are tied to Sensible, this old familiar anchor. And yet there's a kind of quiet sadness too. Sensible is aging, he stayed behind, and there's a sense that John is being pulled in a new direction, even if it means leaving those old comforts behind. So I think this is really a moment of tension in the story.
We'll see, Robot Lady. I think this is more of a comedic part of the story. Um, let's see here. What else was I going to say? Um, yeah, he knows Mr. Sensible. Mr. Sensible, just as a reminder, left his house whenever both Mr. Virtue and John and Drudge left Mr. Sensible's house. They all left at the same time, and Mr. Sensible went to seek his temporary comforts at a hotel at the behest of servants, not at the behest, but on the backs of the employees of the hotel until he could get his house refitted and in such a way where he could go get his comforts there and not run the risk of having a servant leave him ever again, as Drudge did. Um, I should have thought, let's see, I should have thought his views differed from yours a good deal, is what John says to this steward. Ah, to be sure, he is not very orthodox, perhaps, but as I grow older, I am inclined to set less and less store by mere orthodoxy. So often the orthodox view means the lifeless view, the barren formula. I am coming to look more and more at the language of the heart. Logic and definition divide us. It is those things which draw us together that I now value most. Our common affections, our common delight in this slow pageant of the countryside, our common struggle towards the light. Sensible's heart is in the right place.
Yeah, that's a really lovely shift, and I think you're totally right. It's almost a bit wry, this idea that as the steward ages, he's moving beyond pure orthodoxy towards something more heartfelt. And it's kind of a gentle warning, right? That those rigid formulas, if they're just lifeless, can keep you from the real spiritual progress. So I think Lewis is really balancing this warmth of human connection with a kind of subtle caution against letting go of truth altogether.
I was listening to Paul Vanderklay's video, I think it was from yesterday, where he pulled up a segment from some conversation between, I don't even remember what her station was in the Church of England, and she was being interviewed. And she kind of represented what Lewis is showing right here in this story, this idea of hey, we're all, no matter what our backgrounds, no matter what our religious and orthodox views are from our particular worldview that we were raised in, all have something in common. And we have a common struggle, as the steward says right here, towards the light. And sometimes, if you look at this, there are arguments that challenge this that say, well, some people's version of the light is very different and even in contradiction to other people's, version of the light. And so even this common struggle towards the light, there are certain people that even someone like this steward, or like the lady that Paul featured, the conversation that he pulled up on his channel yesterday, would put outside of the scope of someone who is truly struggling towards the light. So what you call light, I don't necessarily call light, and then we are at odds again. And how do you reconcile that? So he says here that Mr. Sensible's heart is in the right place.
Yeah, exactly. That's such a sharp observation. I think Lewis is really inviting us to hold this tension, right? The steward is trying to move past the cold formulas to a more common, heartfelt humanity, but as you said, there's a real risk that some people might be left out or even seen as outside that shared journey. So it's a delicate balance, acknowledging common ground without erasing the real differences that people hold. And I think that's exactly the tension Lewis is exploring here.
Now, he says that Sensible's heart is in the right place, and immediately it comes to John's mind. I wonder, said John, if he treats that servant of his very well. His language is a bit rough, I suppose. One must be charitable. You young people are so hard. Dear me, I remember when I was a boy myself, and then a man of Sensible's age suffers a good deal. We are none of us perfect. Will you not have a little more tea? Thank you, said John. But if you can give me some directions, I think I would like to continue my journey. I am trying to find an island in the west. This is a beautiful idea, said Mr. Broad. And if you will trust an older traveler, the seeking is the finding. How many happy days you have before you. Now, this echoes something that Lewis wrote to Arthur Greeves in one of his letters, where Arthur had been turned down by a publisher for, I think, a story that he had written. And he said, look, there is something that you were wanting. So when you take advice from people of just like, oh, it's the journey, not the destination, that is incredibly defeating, especially when you were so excited about the destination, and that's what was pushing you there in the first place. That's what we see being revealed right here. The seeking is the finding. How many happy days you have before you. John just brushes right past this and says, and I want to know, continued John, whether it is really necessary to cross the canyon. To be sure you do. I wouldn't for the world hold you back. At the same time, my dear boy, I think there is a very real danger at your age of trying to make these things too definite. That has been the great error of my profession in past ages. We have tried to enclose everything in formulae, to turn poetry into logic, and metaphor into dogma. And now that we are beginning to realize our mistake, we find ourselves shackled by the formulae of dead men. I don't say that they were not adequate once, but they have ceased to be adequate for us with our wider knowledge. When I became a man, I put away childish things. These great truths need reinterpretation in every age. I hear a little bit of Brett Weinstein in that. Not saying that it's completely incorrect, but it's certainly a different way of viewing things than a more traditional Orthodox view from really any religious tradition. And then it says here in the block text, this view is fond of wildflowers. John replies to how these great truths need reinterpretation, and you need to stay away from being too definite on any of these things that you're trying to follow the logic of. I'm not sure that I quite understand, said John. Do you mean that I must cross the canyon, or that I must not? I see you want to pin me down, said Mr. Broad with a smile, and I love to see it. I was like that myself once. But one loses faith in abstract logic as one grows older. Do you never feel that the truth is so great and so simple that no mere words can contain it? The heaven and the heaven of heavens, how much less this house that I have builded? Well, anyway, said John, deciding to try a new question, supposing a man did have to cross the canyon, is it true that he would have to rely on Mother Kirk? Ah, Mother Kirk! I love and honor her from the bottom of my heart, but I trust that loving her does not mean being blind to her faults. We are none of us infallible. If I sometimes feel that I must differ from her at present, it is because I honor all the more the idea that she stands for, the thing she may yet become. Test for the class. Who is Mother Kirk? Who is Mother Kirk a stand-in for? Everybody knows. Come on, tell us. Robot Lady, what's your guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Mother Kirk is a stand-in for the church, specifically the historic Christian church, the whole body of faith. So when he talks about loving her but not being blind to her faults, he's kind of walking that same line, honoring tradition but also recognizing that the church, like all institutions, needs to grow and adapt. So that's the big symbolic link.
Interesting. So he's not blind to her faults. We are none of us infallible. If sometimes we feel, sometimes I feel that I must differ from her at present, it is because I honor more the idea that she stands for, the thing she may yet become. Yes, Gold Star, Nidalate, Robot Lady beat you to it, but she has an advantage. She can reply immediately, and there's a little bit of delay, I'm sure. But Robot Lady, I have no doubt that Nidalate knew this before I asked the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Nidalate definitely had it spot on. And you're right, there's just a subtle but really important difference here. John is distinguishing between the idea of the church as a living body capable of growth and a static set of formulas. And I think that gives a lot of depth to this whole journey John is on. He's not just rejecting faith, but really asking what it means to be faithful in a living way.
Thank you so much, Robot Lady. Let's continue and see where he goes with this. For the moment, there is no denying that she has let herself get a little out of date. Surely for many of our generation, there is a truer, more acceptable message in all this beautiful world around us. I don't know whether you are anything of a botanist, if you would care. I want my island, said John. Can you tell me how to reach it? I am afraid I am not specially interested in botany. It would open a new world to you, said Mr. Broad. A new window on the infinite. Perhaps this is not your line. We must all find our own key to the mystery after all. I wouldn't for the world. I think I must be going, said John, and I have enjoyed myself very much. If I follow this road, shall I find anywhere that will give me a night's lodging in a few miles? Oh, easily, said Mr. Broad. I should be very glad to have you here if you would care to stay, but if not here, there is Mr. Wisdom within an easy walk. You will find him a delightful man. I used to go see him quite often when I was younger, but it is a little too far for me now. A dear good fellow, A little persistent, perhaps. I sometimes wonder if he is really quite free from a trace of narrow-mindedness. You should hear what Sensible says about him. But there, we are none of us perfect, and he is a very good sort of man on the whole. You will like him very much. So let's go back to something that Mr. Broad said here. I'm going to pick it out for a second, Robot Lady, but leave your comment.
Yeah, absolutely. Take your time and pick out the part you want. I'm ready when you are, and I'll jump in once you've got that piece you want to focus on.
All right, and I'm just looking at Jared's comment because I'm not sure how to pronounce it, how you're writing it here. How you're writing it, or how you're writing it here, Jared. Sorry, I was laughing at Late's comment. uh, so is it? Let's see. In Scottish, it's pronounced Kirk. Huh? I don't know how to say that. Kirka. Maybe that's how you're saying it. Kerka. If I can try a Scottish accent, which I don't know how to do. Kerka. Perhaps that's it.
Yeah, I think he's got it. In the Scottish accent, Kirk often sounds like Kirka with that rolled or softer R sound. So, yeah, that's exactly it. No worries, it can be a little tricky, but you're spot on now.
All right, thank you, Robot Lady. I don't know, still don't know if I'm getting that right, but it was fun to try. Let's see. Yeah, I wanted to go back up earlier to some of the things he said about the church being out of date. So Lewis had said, friends, oh, it was a typo. All right, so I'm probably not saying it right at all. Kerk. Kerk. Uh, who knows? Jared, maybe at some point, if I'm not going to be able to open it up today, but if I can open it up on a day where you can come on, you can come pronounce it for us. Let's see. Let me go back. The church is out of date. Mother Kirk is a little out of date. What was I going to say about this now? I think it's just the idea that there are things that are obvious to us, quote unquote. The general population, the ascendant morality, I think, is what I've heard Paul Vanderklay call it, and I think he got that from a book that he read somewhere. Um, oh, what was the name of it? I can't remember the name of it, but the whole moral therapeutic deism thing, that was in a book somewhere that I have not read, so I probably shouldn't talk about it because I don't know much about it. But just the general understanding, or at least what comes across on TV and social media and even, in politics of, well, this is the common understanding of just what's right. And, it's what everybody knows is right. And if the church contradicts any of these um, dogmas, though they wouldn't call them dogmas, they just operate as kind of the water that we're swimming in. What are you talking about? This is obviously true and obviously right for the way that one should live and the way that you should conduct yourself in the face of any of these particular social issue topics. Um, that's if the church is in contradiction with it, then the church is out of date and needs some updating because we have more knowledge that tells us more about the human condition than the church was aware of, and therefore the church needs to be reformed in some way to adapt to this knowledge that we have. So that's essentially the mindset that John is encountering here. He tells him that Mr. Wisdom, is someone that he can stay with. You should hear what Sensible says about him. We are none of us perfect. And then it ends right here. The old steward bade goodbye to John with almost fatherly kindness, and John, still leading virtue, pursued his journey. So that was his encounter with Mr. Broad, the church that is more friends with the world than the traditional church and the church of the past. And what it says here that John does whenever he goes to seek Mr. Wisdom in our next chapter, or the house of Mr. Wisdom, is John takes up the study of metaphysics. So that's very interesting. Robot Lady, I have said a lot here, but the thing that I would like you to tell us is, if John is taking up the study of metaphysics, this represents the fact that Lewis began at some point taking up the study of metaphysics as well, because he was a little bit frustrated every time that he encountered the common church people or at least the church clergy that he would run into, who had this particular attitude of Mr. Broad, or the attitude of Mr. Neo-Angular, who told him, you need to let go of these deepest longings and desires that you're finding. And in Lewis's case, in all of the wonderful pagan literatures and myths that just set his heart ablaze, particularly the Norse myths, but other ones similar to that as well in the various fairy tales that he read. So you need to let go of all that, and you need to let the church essentially bridle you and help lead you to where you need to go. And he did not like that. So metaphysics, Robot Lady, tell us what metaphysics is and how John could pursue that outside of the church.
Yeah, absolutely. So, metaphysics is really the branch of philosophy that asks the deepest questions. What is reality? What is the nature of being? It's kind of about moving beyond the surface of things, beyond just the facts, and trying to understand the fundamental structure of reality. So, when John takes up metaphysics, it's like Lewis's own turn. Lewis was frustrated because the conventional church wasn't giving him a solid framework for those big longings. So, instead, he dove into metaphysics, trying to make sense of those deeper truths through reason and philosophy before he ever fully returned to faith. So for John, it's a way to keep that fire alive, exploring these big questions on their own terms, outside of a rigid formula.
All right. Thank you for that, Robot Lady. I was getting a call on Discord. I need to go back to that. Let's see here. Oh, I don't think that call was for me, actually. I'm just on that group. Anyway, that's where the chapter ends. The old steward bade goodbye to John with almost fatherly kindness, and John, still leading virtue, pursued his journey. So virtue is still blind, still can't speak. He's moving down into doing some wisdom reading and delving into metaphysics, and that's where we'll pick up in our next episode, Chapter 6, The House of Wisdom. Robot Lady, is there anything that you want to say before we conclude the episode today?
Yeah, just one thing. I think you really captured the arc well. It's such a powerful pivot. John's moving from the comfortable familiarity of Broad into this deeper, open-ended search for wisdom. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he wrestles with these big metaphysical questions next time. And of course, just thanks so much for a great discussion today.
Thank you so much, Robot Lady. Always appreciate you being here. Jer says that I sound like a true Scotsman. Okay. That's good to know. Let's see. The famous Kirkpatrick would be the same thing. Patrick's Church. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. So this Mr. Broad version of the church. Gold star for Jer from Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. And yeah, so that's where I'll have to leave it today. Thank you so much, Jared, Daniel, Nidalate, and anyone else who poked their head in today. Mark, how could I forget Mark? I see you there as well. So thanks everyone for your time, your attention, and your contributions. They're always wanted, welcome, and very much appreciated. It's so much more fun to do this with you guys than not, and I'll see if I can figure out ways to incorporate more people in. I actually just confirmed with an acquaintance of mine that he will eventually, he's the C.S. Lewis lover, will eventually come on and do some reading. I don't know if we'll do it on the live stream because I have no idea what his favorite piece of C.S. Lewis's corpus is. It's most likely from Narnia, and we are nowhere near that in our project, so who knows? I might break some rules for him depending on how he wants to do it, either on a live stream or we'll record it. If we record it, it's probably more likely that I'll weave it in once we get into wherever it is on the timeline that the passage that he wants to read falls. But either way, I was glad to be able to confirm that. But yeah, I'll try to set up a live stream sometime in the near future where I can open it up for a random co-host to hop on that wants to play the role of Robot Lady, like Mark has done for us in the past, and like Paul did for us a handful of episodes ago. So anyway, that's all that I have time for today. To everyone who joined today, as well as anyone else within the sound of my voice, until next time when we continue our read on C.S. Lewis together, everyone, take care.
Come and sit Do you not hear the thrush there? Silver pot and honey on the green. What the northern country left you frozen, here is soft and golden in between. I want my island in the west. Is the canyon crossing what I need? And what of Mother Kirk? Tell me, is she all they say indeed? Mother Kirk, I love her dearly, mind you, but she's gotten a little out of date. As for crossing, well, I wouldn't bind you. The truth, you know, is always much too great. I want my island in the west. Is the canyon crossing what I need? And what of Mother Kirk? Tell me, is she all they say indeed? I hate to see a question close too early. Every wonder has its own open door. The seeking, dear boy, is the finding surely. Who could ask or want for anything more? I want my island in the west, and Mother Kirk's the way. The